People of the internet, welcome back to another video. It is I, Don Thomas, back in here with another one. As always, folks, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, folks. Have you heard? Apple seems to have lost a lawsuit in which it's entitling them to pay outwards of $95 million. Why? Because their beloved Siri device that some of you guys may have on your phones. Of course, Siri is the, assistant on the phone. You ask Siri, hey Siri. Allegedly, Siri has been eavesdropping on your conversations without people's knowledge. I got a video pulled up here. Of course, it comes from CBC News, which they do entitle the video, Apple to pay $95 million to settle lawsuit accusing Siri of eavesdropping. I want to get a little bit more insight as to what exactly was going on with Apple. $95 million is a lot of money, but to Apple, maybe that's nothing. I feel like some of us maybe already kind of knew this news, of course, maybe kind of had our feelings, our little inklings, but when you hear it, when it's been put to the forefront, it makes you kind of think a little bit. Let's watch this video, get a little bit of insight, see what else we can learn from this lawsuit.
If you own an iPhone, you'll want to listen in on this next story. Apple has agreed to pay $95 million US to settle a lawsuit that accuses its virtual assistant, Siri, of eavesdropping. The CBC's Scott Peterson has the details.
There's a lot of anecdotal stories out there about people talking about a place or a thing or a restaurant only to be advertised a few hours later on their advertising feed on their iPhones. And it turns out that is in fact happening. Apple has settled for $95 million in a lawsuit that accuses Apple of allowing Siri to record conversations and then to share those conversations with advertisers from September 2014 to the end of last year. And that $95 million is just a sliver of what Apple has made since 2014, for example, making $750 billion profit since then. And so that represents, if doing the math, about 9 hours of profit for Apple. Now, legal analysts say that that settlement is a bargain. Now, by settling, it allows Apple to not admit any guilt whatsoever, also avoiding the publicity of a trial, avoiding bigger charges, potentially, of wiretapping or breaking privacy laws, which is a much bigger fine representing over $1.5 billion. So this is expected to be finalized in court in February if the judge does accept that settlement by Apple. And it also goes against the CEO, Tim Cook, and his pledge to consumers for consumer privacy, saying, quote, that consumer privacy is a fundamental human right. Now, Apple is not alone on this. Google and their voice messaging database also is being accused of listening in on private conversations. And with the advent of AI infecting everything from Siri to all kinds of voice activations, there's a lot of worry by skeptics out there that this is not the last we're going to hear about these privacy issues. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
So there you heard it, folks. Siri has been accused of eavesdropping on your private conversations. Now, of course, sometimes you probably felt like, oh, man, that's just a conspiracy, man. They're not really listening to us. Stop watching those movies, some would say. But then it's like when you hear it brought to the forefront, it's like, oh, wait, it's actually true. So if you guys caught that part in there, of course, they mentioned a couple things that kind of stuck out to me. One, the fact that, of course, this is all allegedly. Apple is, when you do a settlement, of course, they're basically bypassing them having to go to court and saying that, not having to admit that these accusations are true, whatever the case is. So, okay, cool, we'll settle. We're not confirming nor denying these allegations, but we'll settle. Here. Take your $95 million. Of course, you heard the number there. $95 million to Apple, folks, is nothing. $95 million is maybe $1,000 to the common man, or maybe even $100. $95 million to the institution of Apple is nothing. I think the gentleman even said in that video that they made, $75 billion? I forgot the number that he said. And just maybe last year alone, or whatever the case was. But Apple is a $1 trillion company. They go back and forth with NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA, of course, is responsible for the microchips and whatever the case is. NVIDIA, I think, maybe superseded Apple. These are $1 trillion companies. So what's $95 million to like, hey, all right, here, take your money. So what? We might be eavesdropping. So what? We don't want to take it to court. Take your $95 million in a settlement, class action lawsuit, I'm assuming. And let's go back to doing what we were doing. $95 million is nothing to Apple. And then of course I also thought it was interesting as well too. So they said, okay, what is Siri listening for? Now I'm sure all of us had this experience. I've had this experience myself dozens of times where you could be talking about something. You could be talking about a rice cooker or vacation or whatever the case is, and lo and behold, you open up your phone and the next thing you see is an advertisement for the thing that you just started speaking on. So of course, as it said there in the clip, it said that Apple is doing exactly that. So of course, they're listening to your conversations, right? And then selling that information to advertisers, so advertisers could then in return sell you or pitch you on that thing that you were just talking about. So it made me think, if Siri's capable of listening to my conversation, listening for the product placement of, listening for product placement or experiences that they can maybe pitch me later, and then Apple, of course, is taking that information that they gathered off of the eavesdropping and then sending it to advertisers, what else are they listening to and who else are they sending that information to? Makes me wonder. So let's say, for example, you're having a conversation amongst a few of your comrades or whatever the case is, and you start talking about illegal activities or, mass destruction, whatever the case is. Do you think Apple has that same right to send that information to the FBI, the CIA? I would assume so. I don't see a situation where, we only listen to sell them things, but we don't listen for anything else. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, if Siri can eavesdrop on your conversation, only in return to sell you something later on, take that information and send it to advertisers, whether it be Amazon, Best Buy, whatever the case is, so they can sell you ads. What if you start saying things that the government might find interesting? And Apple's like, oh, wait, so we'll send this to Amazon and Walmart, but we'll send this to the FBI and CIA. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, and again, folks, I feel like we all kind of knew these things. Of course, we're all smart people here. If you watch this channel, I'm considering you somebody that is a critical thinker, right? So it's just like, damn, it makes me wonder. And to be completely honest, folks, I always joke around this stuff with my family, my sister, and them as well, too. Like, I am 100% sure my name is on a list. 100%. Like, I think whether it be my social media, the videos that I upload on here, the private conversations that I have with a few colleagues, I'm pretty sure my name is on a list of, hey, let's watch this guy, just in case. And again, time and time again, I've always come out and say, hey, I want no problem with y'all. I want no smoke with the FBI, the CIA. I want no problems with y'all, man. So the things that, if they are listening, and of course, they never really catch me, saying anything that's, outside of the norm that any person that has just common gripes of the average man would have. I'm not calling for any type of revolution. I'm not calling for a revolt of any type of sort. Nah. But I do, of course, a lot of the times express my frustration and my disdain for the greed and the corruption of a lot of these politicians and people in power and things of that nature. So that's no surprise. So, maybe there's different levels of people who, whatever the case, but 100% I do know that. I'm almost confident that I am on some type of list as to one of the people that we should be monitoring, along with a lot of other people. I would imagine the likes of Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and a lot of other different people who don't have a platform, but also feel a certain way of just, again, the plight of the common man here in America. Sure, there's a lot of people that have expressed their frustration to some degree or another, that I wouldn't be surprised that they all maybe gathered that information and shipped off and put our name on some type of list. So it makes me kind of like concerned. Again, my phone is sitting right here as I'm recording this, man. And again, again, some people might say, hey, man, I have nothing to hide. Let them listen, man. What's the problem? To be completely honest, folks, I've never been a fan of any of these things. I don't use Siri. I don't use Alexa. I don't use whatever all the other ones are. I don't use none of that, bruh. I'm not gonna actively invite the government and these institutions into my home, although they're already here. Don't get me wrong, because again, I think a lot of these devices, not just your phone, I think your computer listens to you. I think your TV listens to you. I think anything that has a microphone is safe to assume that it can listen to you. If it's not listening to you, it has the ability to listen to you, whether that be through hackers or whatever the case is. So I'm no fool. I do know the phone's listening to you. Anything that has a microphone is probably listening to you. Anything that has a camera is probably recording you. Let's just keep it real. So again, I want to believe that this is common knowledge to a lot of folks, but again, it kind of makes you kind of ponder a little bit, or at least it did for me. And seeing that, this is actually a thing. They're not hiding anymore. They're not denying anything of the sort. Of course, Apple with this 95 million, or I should call it $95. 95 million is like $95 to Apple. So it's just like, by them being able to pay off that $95 million suit and say, okay, hey, I hear these accusations. We're not confirming. We're not denying. Let's just pay these folks for it to go away so we can go back to doing what we're doing. It makes you kind of think what kind of privileges we have in this country in terms of just like privacy, right? Privacy, security, surveillance. Remember I said not too long ago, man, I feel like a lot of the times we're on the Truman Show. I feel like right now, the current state of our nation right now, just the world as a whole, I feel like it's a mix between Hunger Games and the Truman Show. Of course, those are two very good movies. If you guys haven't seen them, I suggest you check them out. The first Hunger Games, it's a little bit of that in terms of, I've been saying this, the arena that we're living in, right? The constraints and the difficulties, the challenges that the arena, this world, you know, for us to be a participant in this game called life is kind of throwing on us. It's a lot difficult. So I do feel like it's a little bit of survival of the fittest. I feel like there's the super wealthy and versus the people, the haves and the have-nots, I guess you could say, which is basically the whole theme of the Hunger Games. And then, of course, the Truman Show, which is the movie with Jim Carrey, where he just felt like he was always just being watched, being monitored. Like he was, you know, inside of just one big joke where, you know, people watching him and there's things happening behind the scenes and then there's cameras and there's lighting and there's scripts, whatever the case is. Like one big movie set, essentially. Sometimes I can't help but to feel like that's the case for a lot of us. Again, whether it's, you know, high profile people, whether it's regular civilians like you and me. I can't help but to think that, again, when you hear news of this, with Siri eavesdropping and listening to your conversations and then selling it off for, you know, to the highest bidder, essentially, so they can sell you advertising, what else are they listening to? What other conversations has Siri eavesdropped on and sent off to the highest bidder in terms of, you know, the things that you discuss that you think are private amongst you and your household or your friends or whatever the case is? All things to consider, folks. Again, of course, I would assume that anybody that watches this channel is fairly knowledgeable on these things that happen in the world, but it's a wake-up call every now and again when these things happen. Again, this recently just happened. I think this CBC News reported on this maybe about 3 days ago. I did remember seeing this earlier in the week. So again, when these things come to light, it kind of just makes you kind of realize, like, damn, privacy, freedom of speech, all these other things, these are the liberties that they say that we have here in America. It makes you feel like it's tied to a string, right? So they say that we have these things and then they yoink it right back or abuse some of these privileges that they say we have in this country. Makes you kind of wonder. But again, those are my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. What do you make of this, folks? Are you concerned that your phone is monitored to you? Please don't tell me you just now knowing about this, right? I'm sure you were aware. Do you conduct yourself any differently knowing that these corporations or government entities or whoever may be listening to you at this very moment? Do you look at your phone a little bit differently? Knowing that at any moment, it could be listening to you and selling off your information or whatever the case is. Are you concerned? And what's the solution? What's the rebuttal? How do we counteract? How do we leave a little bit of privacy for ourselves in this consumerist, right? In this consumerist world that we're all living in, right? It's a little bit scary, man, if you ask me. But again, some people might feel like, hey, man, I have nothing to hide. Let them listen. I have nothing to hide. It's the principle, bro. It's the principle. Those are my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. As always, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. I will catch you guys on the next one.